We're back. I would say we were not gonna finish the case tonight because I gotta go to bed in about an hour and a half, and well, these things seem to go on a bit long. And it's not a knock against the series. So we're getting Eggert Benedict on the stand, and that's not his real name, but he's clearly somehow related. Maybe he has another brother, or maybe that's just their gang sign. But they're afraid of him, apparently, because they don't want to say anything about him.
But the telegraph woman knows him from her office.
Yes, which
is weird.
It's interesting, yeah. The jury, man, is a weird thing. Lord von Zeeks, have you successfully subpoenaed the witness? The subpoena was delivered in the communication station where this man works immediately, my lord. Also, that says Barak von Zeeks. I think I thought it said Baron. The whole life's a lie. However, the heavy rain has delayed the arrival of his carriage, it would seem. I see. Then let us turn our attention to Inspector Gregson's précis of the... I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, of the case heard by the court this morning. The glaring omission of the third bullet in your report is a serious blunder, Inspector. Yes, I can only apologize, my lord. And although the defense's chemical analysis of the blood at the scene makes for compelling argument, I cannot permit such untried methods to be used as evidence in my courtroom. It's a big mistake to cross Hurley and me. A very big mistake. My lord, the subpoenaed witness has just arrived in the building. Thank you, officer. Show him to the stand without delay. Mr. Eggert Benedict. I didn't expect to be crossing paths with him again so soon, certainly not like this. Thank you for complying with the court's subpoena at such short notice, sir. But of course, my lord. As an upstanding member of London society, it is my pleasure to oblige. Now kindly state your name and occupation for the record. Ashley Graydon, Communications Officer. Mr. Graydon and I both work at London's Central Communications Station. Now perhaps somebody would kindly explain what all this is about? You were apprised of the situation by the court officer on your way here, I presume. Yes, I was. Something to do with a murder that took place at a pawnbroker's on Baker Street. And some nonsense about me having been there on the night in question. That is the accusation, indeed. This really is beyond a joke, you know. Very well, without further delay, the court will hear your testimony now, Mr. Graydon. You will respond to the accusation made against you under oath. I think I said Grayson by mistake. Gladly, my lord. Gladly. What if his testimony is just, I wasn't there, and then we have to find a piece of evidence?
For some reason, I think it's not funny.
Naturally, I have occasion to make use of pawnbroking services from time to time, but are you seriously suggesting I colluded with these thugs to break into the place on the night of the murder? I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation, even if certain parties here present claim that my blood was found at the scene. Some Scaramouche detective's homebrew tincture can hardly be taken as serious evidence.
Why does he know that his blood was there?
Well, he was surprised at the situation, wasn't he?
I mean, I'm sure they said about a murder and him being there, but no one... Well, I mean, I don't know if they told him all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if not, we'll find a contradiction, but I can imagine saying, hey, they say they found your blood, and through this... Because he knows it was from Hurley's method, or Sholm's method, so you deny the accusation completely, do you? I must say I am dismayed. For the highest court in the land to be swayed by this self-professed detective's toy. It was the will of the jury, and our great British justice system demands that the jury's will is upheld. Then it would seem we have the misfortune of the most inept assembly of jurors today. By golly. How long am I expected to be detained here? If, following the defense's cross-examination, your involvement in this matter has not been established, you will be free to leave immediately. Good, then I shall be away in time for afternoon tea, some small consolation at least. Let us not hold up Mr. Graydon any longer than necessary, counsel. Proceed with the cross-examination. So, we meet again, Mr. Egbert Benedict. Or is it Mr. Graydon? My apologies, you are?
Oh.
Ryunosuke Naruhodo, defense lawyer. We have met. If you say so, Ashley Graydon, enchanté. So. But I'm not holding your flashy hat while we do. I'm sorry, but you are. Okay. Well, press him?
Sure.
Hold it! Hold it!
Yes, we even met in the very pawnbrokery where the crime took place on the afternoon of the day in question. Though, of course, you introduced yourself by a different name at the time. It was Mr. Egbert Benedict, I believe.
Objection.
Tell me, what made you... The witness is here to testify about events that took place that night. He is under no obligation to answer such unrelated... You can't be serious. Thank you, because I certainly do not feel inclined to answer such an inappropriate question. So he's going to be evasive, is he? In an effort not to give anything away. This could be tricky. But are you seriously suggesting I colluded with these thugs to break into the place on the night of the murder? Yes!
Hold it! Hold it!
Yes, we are. Have you seen these two men before? This pair? No, I don't associate with criminals. Said by a man who introduced himself as Egbert Benedict. I'd like to know who I have to thank for this. He made this outlandish accusation against me. The young lawyer there in the black. This is a farce. Whose idea was it to permit an outsider to work in a British court anyway? Well, needless to say, I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation. Press?
Hold it! Hold it!
Where were you at around 1 in the morning on the night in question, sir? That is past the hour at which I would normally retire. Certainly. I was not in the company of these rapscallions. You're able to prove that.
Objection! Listen
carefully, my learned Nipponese friend, for you appear to be under a gross misapprehension at this point. What do you mean? The witness maintains he was not at the scene of the crime. He has no obligation to prove his absence. If your accusation is that the witness was present at the scene, the obligation lies with you to prove your assertion. You will fulfill that obligation before putting any more unreasonable questions to this witness.
What was that?
A silent victory wiggled thanks. Even if certain parties here present claim that my blood was found at the scene. Blood was found at the scene of the crime, there's no question of that. Mr. Sholm's chemical analysis has positively identified the substance as such. But I'm not the only human to have blood running through my veins, am I? How can you be sure that the blood is mine? It could equally be the blood of one of these two miscreants. Every individual's blood has a slightly different composition, it seems. Mr. Sholm's chemical is able to differentiate different blood samples by... Spare me the science lesson. Who is this Sholmes character, anyway? Oh, I assumed all Londoners would know the name. He's a great, well-renowned detective. So even you are unable to bring yourself to say great detective. A great detective, you say? Tisk. Now we're in the realm of fairy tales, are we?
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Skulkin? What, me? No, the Mr. Skulkin next to you. Right, I've had it up to here with it. How many times have I got to tell you? Yes, I know, you're not Big Bruv Sulky. Mr. Nash Skulkin. Blimey, Governor. You what? Is it not the case that when Mr. Graydon just spoke, a thought went through your mind? Would you care to share that thought with the court? Me thoughts? I don't have none of them. It must have been him. You what? Mr. Nash Skulkin, answer the question, please. What went through your mind when Mr. Graydon just spoke? Nothing, honest, Gov, nothing. I was just thinking, if he waves his arms around like that much more, it'll open up the wound again, that's all. What wound? Where he took the bullet, of course. It was only 2 days ago. It ain't gonna be healed up yet. So I was, well, you know, I was worrying for him, and... Oh, L's bells. Mr. Graydon, did you hear that? What? Your comrade is worried about you, it seems. On account of your injured arm? My lord? Yes, Mr. Graydon? I have no idea what these two wretches are talking about. Certainly I shouldn't be expected to answer anything in relation to their mindless insinuations. We know that someone other than the victim was hit by a bullet at the scene of the crime 2 nights ago. And from the height of the bullet hole in the wall, that person was likely hit in the other arm or thereabouts. Perhaps you'd allow a court official to examine your arm, sir? The left arm that you're currently clasping with your right hand as if in pain? No, I refuse. You have shown no evidence whatsoever that links me to these common thieves. Obliged to permit any such invasion of my privacy. As I've already said, I'm completely uninvolved in all this. I've never had anything to do with the pawnbrokery where this fellow was killed whatsoever. I take offense at the insinuation that I was in any way involved. You claim to have had nothing whatsoever to do with Mr. Windelbank's pawnbrokery. My lord, the defense would like that last statement to be added to Mr. Graydon's formal testimony.
So you have a picture of him.
Yes, very well, counsel. Continue with your testimony, Mr. Graydon. The bottom line is I've never had anything to do with the pawnbroking establishment where he was killed.
Present the picture.
Yeah. We do have that as evidence, don't we?
I thought so. Photograph of Gina. Where is it?
Yeah, I thought we did. I remember it showing up, but was it a piece of evidence, or...?
It was before that.
But I don't think we had the picture till after.
Well, after what?
We got that picture.
Where is it now?
I don't know. I don't know if we ever had it as evidence, but I do remember the picture.
Me too.
Well, let's press on this one.
Hold it!
Never had anything to do with it. You forget that I was there, Mr. Graydon, on the very afternoon of the incident. Obviously, I'm not a complete stranger to the pawnbrokers. I'm currently on the lookout for an armchair to furnish my study. No, you were there to redeem an article.
Is that right?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
He remembers it too because he intercepted it.
Yes!
Excuse me.
Good! He was frickin' there! Do you have something to add, Inspector? Come again, Sunshine? You were there too, in fact, weren't you, Inspector, that afternoon? Well, yes, I do remember meeting yourself and the pawnbrokers that afternoon. You, your young Japanese assistant, and the accused were all present, as I recall. And at the time, the witness, Mr. Graydon, was trying to acquire a particular article. Well now. I'm afraid I don't remember too clearly. Dude, what? But you must. I'm not going to lie and pretend I remember something that I don't. What's going on here? Grexy showed us a picture before, didn't he? You know, from the cameras that Hurley installed in Windelbanks, that was the picture. Yes, of course. Indeed, and the gentleman pictured bears a striking resemblance to the witness, I must say. Exactly, which proves that Mr. Graydon was in the shop on the afternoon in question. At no point have I denied that fact. I merely entered the shop to peruse the articles on sale and have a word with the broker. Nothing more. Don't you remember the gun, dude? This makes no sense. I understand why Mr. Graydon might be trying to cover his tracks. But why would Gregson be trying to avoid giving testimony about what happened? Yeah, that is weird. Like, wouldn't you remember if he had a freaking gun?
And he did. I wonder if it just makes it look like they did a bad job because the bullet was in Hurley's thing, so he doesn't want to admit to it because then it looks like they did a bad job.
Well, he's doing a bad job right now.
Yeah.
That's all he's going to say on the matter, is it? What do you think, Bruno? I think he has no intention of telling us anything. He's well aware that the less he says, the less chance he has of giving himself away. The complete opposite of Hurley, then. He seems to think the more he says, the better. Well, at least I managed to prize a little more information from these witnesses' lips, all thanks to the Skulkin brothers. Yes, they were the key to it after all. So he says he had nothing to do with Windibangs. Well, we know that's not true. Perhaps now would be a good time to have a proper look through the court record. Good idea. You never know what tiny scrap of information could become a valuable weapon.
You had the piece of paper with Gina's information written on it? Kitty.
I don't think we pressed them on this yet, so let me do that, and then we'll see what evidence we have. Don't forget, sir, that Mr. Herlock Sholmes is the most famous detective in the world. And the most famous detective in the world tells the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, oh no, I can't think how to answer that. I once saw the world's most famous swindler thrown into jail. He allegedly told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but what turned out to be a pack of lies. Quite. Now, as you are no doubt aware, the Central Communication Station is the heart of this country's information network. My work there is of paramount importance. You have kept me from it for long enough already. Okay. Let's see what we got. Yeah, it's not. No. I don't know, because that's the McGilded case. FDR, huh? Cool. But wait, isn't this too early in the century for FDR? There's a sensational story lower down the front page as well. Look, Ministry Mole classified secrets may have been leaked overseas from Ministry of Justice. For a 10-year-old, Ira certainly has her finger on the pulse of the world news. Oh wait, we've gone through this. Yeah, we still don't know the lore, what Strongheart's dealing with, but...
I don't think we have anything to
I mean, he wanted the disc, but how do we... Do we just show the disc and say, but you came for the disc?
I don't know. I mean, the same green blood is on that supposedly cut him.
Yeah. Hey, look! If you go left and right, you look at the picture, that stuff really does move. That's cool. It's actually not that cool, but I mean, I noticed it. Well, I could be totally wrong, but let me try that disc. Have you ever seen this disc before, Mr. Graydon? Why, is it supposed to mean something? This disc was until the day of the murder in pawn in Mr. Windibang's shop, It was redeemed by the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, that afternoon. However, somebody mysteriously appeared to try to take it from her. And that somebody was you, of course, wasn't it, Mr. Graydon? As I have reiterated numerous times now, you are mistaken. That was not me. I've never seen that disc before in my life. It may have escaped your notice, but there is a small smear of blood on the disc. Ah, yes, resulting from the abrasion of the thumb, perhaps. That's right. The surface of the disc is covered in hundreds of tiny metal bumps. In the skirmish to acquire the disc, the thumb of the person who tried to take it suffered minor lacerations. Well, yeah, let's see your hand, then. So, while the disc bears the remnants of that skirmish in the form of this smear of blood, the thumb of the person in question must bear the remnants also in the form of a scratch. Good gracious, indeed it must. Mr. Graydon, you refused to allow a court officer to examine your arm before. Are you now going to refuse to allow us to examine your thumb? Because I have no doubt that it bears a small scratch consistent with the smear of blood on this disc. Well, well. It would seem I underestimated you. Well, what is the meaning of this? So you admit it now. You admit you have a scratch on your thumb from when you attempted to take the disc from the defendant. No, he's gonna admit he has a scratch, but he got it like watering plants or something. I don't know how that actually would give you a scratch.
Thorn from a rose.
There we go. It would appear there has been something of a misunderstanding here. I did not attempt to take the disc as you put it. No, quite the reverse. What are you trying to say? It's really quite simple, you see. The disc was mine from the outset. Is there some crime in taking an item that you own out of pawn? What? It would seem, Mr. Graydon, that in this piece of evidence my learned friend has established a link between yourself and the incident. Accordingly, you will tell the court everything you know about this disc now. As you wish, though I'm quite sure it has nothing whatsoever to do with the pawnbroker's murder. There's a note on this disc saying "For McGilded," but the item belongs to me. The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, that filthy gutterling, on the day in question. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. In other words, I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later that same night. Did I hear you correctly, sir? McGilded, you say, that famous London philanthropist, who perished in this very courtroom 2 months ago after being acquitted of a distinctly messy murder. Yes, my lord, the one and the same. Good lord, Mr. Graydon, are you saying that Mr. McGilded and yourself were acquainted? Yes, that's correct. Order, well, I certainly didn't expect to hear that name uttered here in my courtroom again. According to what Gina told us, this disc was placed in pawn on that fateful night 2 months ago. McGilded himself gave instructions to deposit it at Windibanks. It's funny that Mr. Graydon here is claiming the disc belongs to him then, isn't it? In all likelihood he's lying. So he appeared that afternoon at Windibanks in order to get his hands on McGilded's disc for some reason. Counsel, you commence your cross-examination, please. Let me look at that note again. So this is a redemption ticket. 1 small box. Okay, so it doesn't actually say here, this is Gina. Okay. Well, first, for McGilded, but it belongs to him, would you care to explain how this belongs to you? As you will observe, a communications officer such as myself commands a fine salary. You are certainly exquisitely dressed, sir. So you see, I have little need to make use of the services provided by the pawnbrokery trade. However, I did once find myself in difficulties having misplaced my purse whilst on an errand, which is why I pawned my fine black overcoat to the broker in question. You claim that was your overcoat. Obviously, and in my haste, I clean forgot that the music box disc was in its pocket. And yet there is a note on it that reads, "For McGilded. I am a collector of rare and unusual music box music. I first met Mr. McGilda at a gentleman's club in the city and was interested to discover that he shared my penchant in that area. So the disc in question, it's a pre-production sample. I promised to let Mr. McGilda hear it. But then you forgot that it was in the pocket of the overcoat you were forced upon. Yes, exactly. Gina didn't mention any of that in her testimony 2 months ago, did she? No, because McGilda had threatened her to keep her mouth shut, which means that if we dig too deeply here, it's going to expose Gina's perjury. Oh dear, this is complicated, isn't it? Let's leave it alone for the time being. The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, that filthy gutterling.
You know what? That music box disc probably has that tap code on it. And he's selling the secrets. That's why he wants it back. He's the fucking... Sorry about the F-bomb.
Oh my goodness.
He's the leak that's leaking the stuff.
Right. You just get, considering your job, you get very excited when you figure something out.
Fudge. I meant to say fudge.
Yeah.
I love fudge. Fudge is good.
Fudge is very good.
And he was going to buy a lot of fudge with the money he was going to make.
From the secrets.
From the secrets.
Of course, I knew that's what you meant. So you're saying that Miss Lestrade lifted the ticket from your pocket or bag.
You get your broadcast listeners.
You know, I gotta say, we have very good language overall. And we could have... There are many, many times that I think we could have done goofed. That's right, despite being mindful of danger when walking in the insalubrious areas her kind frequent. Miss Lestrade did no such thing. Well, of course you would take that stance, but the girl is a regular offender. You came to the pawnbrokery that day prepared with all the information you needed to identify the defendant. You were looking for her, that's what brought you to Windibanks. To get your hands on Mr. McGilda's disc. He has such an angry objection. My learned friend is a veritable font of nonsense. Nonsense? I concur with the prosecution. Counsel, you will refrain from conjecturing in this way, is that clear? Yes, my lord. Then I will continue with my testimony for what possible use it can be. She wants to shop in order to see a situation and redeem my article. Not your article! Have you ever been to Windibanks before? Only once for the purpose of pawning something, but like many, I enjoy browsing in such establishments. So when you noticed that the pickpocket had taken your ticket, you chased after her, is that correct? Yes, that's right. I didn't notice at first, of course, such is the art of the pick-purse. But when I did, I headed to the pawnbrokery at once, in order to reclaim my coat before the thief could. I was merely trying to recover what was rightfully mine in the first place. He can say what he likes because he knows we have no evidence to contradict him on this. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. Yes, it was. Yes, it was taken by Inspector Gregson here, wasn't it? That's right, this was the very man. Apparently the police are collecting anything that has a connection to Mr. McGilda as evidence.
Excuse me!
You're doing it again.
Maybe he now realizes him, like recognizes him?
I don't know. Is something wrong, Inspector? Well, what do you mean? The last remark Mr. Graydon made in his testimony seemed to trouble you in some way. No, it didn't. It's nothing. Leave it alone. Let me ask you this, Inspector. Why is Scotland Yard gathering Mr. McGilda's possessions? I can't tell you something like that, Sunshine. What is it, Inspector? Investigative secrets? Yes, exactly. You should all know about that. Oh, you should know all about that. Magnus McGilda, who died so unexpectedly after his trial 2 months ago, a man renowned throughout the capital for his great contributions to public life. Yet he had a dark side, too. Where are you going with this, Von Zeeks? I suppose the police are dealing with the aftermath of his nefarious activities, are they? That's enough. Coppers like me have duties to carry out that we're not at liberty to talk about. That's all you need to know. Duties conferred by Lord Strongheart, I presume. The Lord Chief Justice appears to have great faith in you, Inspector. The bottom line is, if you want to get more out of me, you're gonna need Lord Strongheart's paw print first. what's all this about? It's like there's something going on between Gregson and Lord von Zieks here. Well, it would appear that the inspector has revealed all he has had liberty to reveal. Mr. Graydon, let us return to your testimony. Gladly, my lord. In other words, I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later that same night. But perhaps you had seen something of value among the forfeited items. No, not at all. Oh. A valuer was brought in by the police to assess everything in the shop. Without exception, every article on the shelves was common or garden bric-a-brac. In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGilden's disc. Have you not been listening, man? Even if I had wanted to recover the disc, you may recall that it had been seized by the police that afternoon. It was no more in the shop that night than I. As I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in. So there was nothing of McGilden's left in the shop that night. Nothing this man might have been after. I wonder if that's really true. Bruno, if you have some evidence, then let him have it. I'm dying to see that irritatingly assured expression of his crumble. McGilden slipped the disc into his coat pocket and had it deposited at Windibanks. Then, when he realized he was going to be arrested on suspicion of the omnibus murder, he threatened Gina and forced her to take the redemption ticket. There's no doubt about it, that witness is lying through his pearly white teeth. The police were obviously after anything left behind by McGilden as well. That's why Inspector Gregson ended up taking the disc into custody that day. But Gregsy's been very strange about all this. There must be a reason for that, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. For now, I need to focus on exposing the fact that Mr. Graydon is lying in his testimony. Well, it seems clear where the evidence is supposed to be.
Let's see what you get.
Let's see, third bullet.
What's in the post-shooting photograph?
This one?
No, the one of the counter. So, I don't think that those guys knocked that over and put it back.
No?
I think he took something from it. But we don't know what. Because they're obviously moved.
Well, it's true, because that doesn't even move. So it's... See what I mean? Look. If you look, the lamp or the thing on the bottom doesn't move.
Yeah.
Only the top stuff does.
So... But I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I don't know if it does have something to do with them, can we actually prove anything yet using that? I'm not sure.
She says if you have evidence, go ahead and present it.
Let's see what else we can... It's not the armband. Pawnbroker ticket. And the coat ticket. Let's see.
Oh, maybe he was going for the book. The Baskervilles.
You think so?
I don't know what that would have to do with it.
I don't either. Let me try it.
Objection!
No, the music's still going. This reveals a damning inconsistency. Damning, you say? I mean, you might be onto something, it just might not be something that, as you said, we can prove yet. Seems to me that is the damning inconsistency here, with the misplaced confidence of your assertion. Ugh, he has a damning something. Damning tone.
What was the other thing that you thought? Oh, I don't know the Baskervilles thing.
Well, that I know you thought.
I don't know why. I mean, it's just like the only thing that we haven't presented. Like, what else is of value in there that he would go back for?
What are you doing? Oh, taking a picture of the kitty on you. What samples? That's Hop Windabank. Ashley Graydon. Ashley Graydon.
So that wasn't in there. That wasn't in there. Whose was that?
I don't know, but
that was in the shop too, wasn't it?
There was one in the shop. Wow, that's what the button's for, Runo. Just like Hurley, you boys love pressing buttons.
The only thing I can think of is the manuscript, because
I still don't get why.
I don't either. But
yeah. Let's just consider the implications if that's... I'm sorry, it's just like, because it's obviously wrong. I'm just wondering what they're going to say in response. What implications, Counsel? Nothing strikes me about it. Exactly. There's nothing striking about it. What does strike me is your propensity for the inane, however. Ugh, I need to clear my head and come at this from
What are we trying to present?
A reason why he would break into the shop later that same night. Let's press him again on this, just to kind of get a refresher. Have you actually seen something of value? No, not at all. Oh. Everything was just commonplace stuff. In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGillicuddy's disc. If you've not been listening, if I'd wanted to recover the disc, you may recall that it had been seized by police. It was no more in the shop that night than I. As I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in. So there was nothing of McGillicuddy's left in the shop that night. Nothing this man might have been after. I wonder if that's really true. I mean, I can maybe think that one of the tickets is what we're supposed to do, but I would be lying if I said I knew exactly how they would be relevant.
The ticket with the blood on it, right?
That was the thrice-fired Mason one.
Right, but that would be the one that...
For the coat.
Oh, no, maybe it's the other one? The one that Gina redeemed? Because then it's not it. Well, he's saying that she stole it.
Objection.
Which was just her nerves.
It's the box. Okay.
What box?
Before you start, let me go back since I saved. This is the one for the box. The box that was open.
Objection.
This disc was deposited at Windibanks with Magnus McGilden's instructions. You knew that and you went there with the intention of obtaining it for yourself. Conjecture again, and in any case the disc was taken into custody that afternoon. The witness had no reason to visit the pawnbrokery again that night. Sorry, my learned friend, but that's not true. I love calling him my learned friend. I don't know if you feel the satisfaction I do. What? Mr. McGilden had another article in Pawn at Windibanks. As the second pawnbroker's ticket proves. Oh, okay. Okay, I see now. I see now. That's not actually obtuse. That makes sense. There were two articles belonging to Mr. McGilden in Windibanks Pawnbrokery, and the reason you broke into the shop that night was to recover the second one. Together with your two accomplices, the Skulkin brothers. This is the second ticket, is it? What had the man deposited? The article description reads one small box. A rather vague description, it seems to me. Are you suggesting that I broke into the pawnbrokery with these clowns in order to steal some trinket box? I believe there are adequate grounds to suspect that you did. This is absurd. Why on earth would I do such a thing? Once the article had been forfeited, I could simply walk into the shop and purchase it. There would be absolutely no need for me to resort to theft. That's a good point. Indeed, the witness makes a solid argument. So that means that for some reason, this Graydon fellow needed the small box that very night, does it? It's time to put an end to this nonsense, my lord. Could you be a little less cryptic, Lord Von Seeks? I do hate to ruin my learned friend's argument, but the truth is quite incontrovertible. On the night in question, no small box was taken from Windibanks Pawnbrokery. And rest assured, the prosecution can prove it. What? Good gracious. Inspector, show the photographic prints to the court, if you please. Yes, sir. What prints? These prints were taken from one of the detective's security cameras. Ah, Hurley's red-handed recorders again. As previously explained, using this plan of the shop layout, the victim's establishment was furnished with automatic cameras in two locations. One was set to capture the counter where Mr. Windibank received his customers. The other was set to capture the shelves at which the articles were placed for sale once forfeited. According to the information on this ticket, McGilden's small box had been forfeited already, 2 days before the incident at 9 p.m. on the 13th of April to be precise, which means it would have been on the shelves of forfeited items in the shop front. Now, what I have here is a print taken by one of the cameras about 2 hours before the incident. That's at 11 p.m. on the 15th of April. The victim clearly had a full shop, it would appear. You know what's funny? We can't use his blood invention, but we use his cameras. And then here we have another print. This one taken about 2 hours after the incident. I see, so we have two pictures to compare.
We're gonna have to use the shapeshifter thing to do that.
Indeed. Though the stereoscope?
Yeah.
Though I must say that placing them side by side leaves me cold. I gotta say, 5 cases in, this judge is legit.
Yeah.
He's not a doofus like the one we know and love. Dear me, that's starting to make my head ache. Obviously, at Scotland Yard, we consider theft as one possible motive in this case. We explored the possibility that something had been taken in addition to the victim's life. So your men have already compared these two prints thoroughly, Inspector? Yes, sir. We counted every single item in each of these two photographic prints. And the Yard's conclusion is that exactly the same number are present in both. In other words, nothing was taken from the pawnbrokery on the night in question, and my learned friend's assertion is nothing more than a hopeless fantasy. I don't believe it. If I could have just shown that he'd stolen McGilded's pawn box.
What in the world?
I might have been able to break him down at last.
Is that a celebratory wiggle again?
Yeah. You know what, Runo? I've been thinking. Celebratory wriggle. Yeah, let's do it. I wonder if these two photographs really are exactly the same. What? So, counsel, in light of the evidence put forward by the prosecution, what is your position? It seems that, in fact, on the night in question, nothing was stolen from the victim's establishment. Do you accept the prosecution's assertion?
No.
I don't know.
We need to use a piece of evidence.
Yeah, which is the stereoscope. Before I give my answer, my lord, I'd like to try something, if I may. Try something? What do you mean, counsel? I'll need to use a certain piece of evidence from the court record to identify the discrepancy. I'm not entirely sure I follow. Which piece of evidence do you intend to use?
Take that!
I'd like to use this device, my lord. I hope the juror gets excited. Yeah! You caught the bug at last! You can't resist it, can you? You've got the cross-eyed compulsion. Juror number 3, what a surprise. Come on, Runo. Let's put the pictures in place and see what this wonderful contraption shows us. Just check the time. Good. There we go. Now look through the eyepiece. I wasn't sure at first, but there's a clear discrepancy between these two prints. What? You must identify the location in question for the court, counsel. Okay, well, I guess since we have the stereoscope, it's a little easy.
Take that!
Granted, these two prints are almost identical. However, there is one minor discrepancy between them. What? When you view the two pictures stereoscopically, a single area stands out as being different, the location of this small box. Let me wait. Unbelievable.
At least he doesn't deny it.
Yeah. By Jove, you're right. How extraordinary. What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGilded's small box was indeed not stolen from Windibanks on the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned it to its place on the shelves. Are you suggesting that the small box originally deposited by Mr. McGilded is in fact... Yes, the very same small box that is identified in those photographic prints. And it was nighttime, so there's no reason why it should be moved.
No.
Objection!
No one else should have looked at it.
Yeah. Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So a box was moved to the shelf. Nothing was stolen, which means quite simply that nothing has changed. That may be true, but... Alright, McGilded's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact that it was moved like that change things? Yes!
Yeah, he might have taken something out of it.
I believe this changes everything about the case. How can that possibly be? The crucial point is the fact that what was moved was the small box. In other words, we have to consider what might have been inside that box. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Windibanks as we speak. That won't be necessary. The court does not uphold Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it back here for further examination.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. He's saying it has nothing to do with it. Boy, we're having a stare down, aren't we?
Ron thinks he's mad.
Yeah. And he's mad too. But I don't uphold your objection because he died 2 months ago, but we know he knows him. He was getting something from him, the music disc, so how can you possibly say otherwise? I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth. To be hoodwinked by such a farce. Disappointing. I beg your pardon, Lord von Zieks. This is nothing but a smokescreen, a Nipponese specialty, it would seem. What are you trying to say? My learned friend has persisted with the same line of reasoning from the very beginning, that this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGilded from the pawnbrokery. Yet common sense tells us that none of the articles have value enough to be worth stealing in the first place. Exactly. It would be beyond absurd to break into a place for the purpose of stealing such commonplace property. If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGilded perished 2 months ago immediately after the conclusion of his trial, a trial in which he was found not guilty, a trial in which it was established he was the upstanding member of society his reputation implied, in fact. Yeah, now you say that. So I propose a toast to my learned friend and his most insightful defense. The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were entirely ordinary. A black overcoat that just happened to have a music box disc in one of its pockets and a small box. I assure you I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me.
He said the overcoat was his.
Yeah, you know, that does make rather a lot of sense. It's not as if it was gold or jewels. But you can't deposit cash at a pawnbrokery, I'm quite certain of that. The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling. It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument, to explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by this fine citizen could have. Well, counsel, is your argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof that the disc or the box are in any tangible way related to this case? Well, what's the matter, Runo? We know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence. Yes, of course, you and I both know that. We know McGilded's true character, we know the disc is significant, even if we don't know why. If we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that McGilded's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake. The defense's argument was flawed based on false information. Oh no, and that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury. But Ginny... Could it be that Von Zieks knows? Is that why he's doing this now, because he anticipated everything? But maybe this could be a great opportunity for us. Sorry, what do you mean, Iris? Well, what is it that you always say, Runo? Sooner or later, the truth comes out every time? Alright, the exact significance of the things that McGilded deposited with Mr. Windibank is something that only Gina can explain to the court. But if I put her on stand to testify about that, it could critically damage her chances of winning this case. What's the right thing to do here?
Probably have Gina testify, because she can explain that her life was in jeopardy.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of have to turn things around while we wait, because I don't get the feeling we're just going to leave it and wait 30 minutes. Let's go have Gina testify. My lord, the defense would like to make a proposal. Oh, what proposal, counsel? While the court awaits the arrival of Mr. McGilded's small box, I would like to call the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, to the witness stand. The defendant? To what end? It's to do with the various articles deposited at Windibanks by Mr. McGilded, my lord. Miss Lestrade has information relating to them. I believe it would be beneficial for the court to hear what she has to say. It will prove the significance of the articles in question once and for all. Well, well, things are becoming interesting. I presume you've considered the implications of the testimony you're proposing, and particularly the impact it will have on the accused standing and indeed your own? I have. Lord Von Zieks, would you care to explain that last remark? The prosecution accepts the defense's proposal. I move to interrupt the cross-examination of the current witness and hear from the accused herself. Very well. If you have no objection, so the court will now hear the testimony of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. You witnesses currently in the stand may step down until further notice. Then I shall bid you good day. Wait. You, sir, shall remain in the stand while Miss Lestrade testifies. What? As you wish. All right then, Gina, it's time. I know this will be hard, but please put your faith in me here. Good luck, Runo. The articles that Mr. McGilded had deposited in Windibake's pawnbrokery are intimately related with the omnibus case, the trial of which was heard in this courtroom 2 months ago. Yes, and I remember this young lady being brought before me in that trial as well. That's right, my lord. Her testimony helped to establish the innocence of the defendant, Mr. McGilded. The omnibus case was intriguing, to say the least, and now here we all are again, the same players in that trial, facing each other once more. A twist of fate, perhaps, my Nipponese friend. Allow me to recap the events of 2 months ago. An old brickmaker was stabbed to death in an omnibus running along London's winter streets. Apart from the victim, there was only one other person in the carriage, Mr. McGilded, and naturally he was the prime suspect for the murder. But as the trial progressed, another possibility emerged. That the murder in fact took place above the defendant's head on the roof deck, with the body then being dropped through the skylight into the carriage below. It was Miss Lestrade whose testimony brought that possibility to light. At the time of the incident, Miss Lestrade was concealed under a seat in the carriage, hoping to pick the pockets of unsuspecting passengers. Then, immediately after the trial, having been acquitted of the murder, Mr. McGilded died in this very courtroom in the most extraordinary of circumstances. A mystery that remains unsolved even now, 2 months on, as indeed does the omnibus murder itself. Be that as it may, I recall neither the disc nor the small box being mentioned in the course of these proceedings. Miss Lestrade, would you tell the court now, please, what really happened in the omnibus 2 months ago, I mean? I don't know what you mean. I already said all of what I know. And what about everything you told us yesterday from inside your prison cell? Please, Miss Lestrade, this is extremely important. But remember, little girl, if it transpires that you willfully withheld information in the trial 2 months ago, the Home Office will seek to prosecute you for perjury. And naturally, you will lose all credibility as a witness. Although, let's face facts, you have little credibility to lose. Ginny, don't listen to him. Please, you have to trust Runo now. Iris? We're on your side. Alright then, I'll talk. It's the right choice, Gina. Well, it would seem that my learned friend is hell-bent on bringing the entire courtroom down about his ears, so be it. I must confess that I'm struggling to understand what on earth is happening here. Well, I know for him, yeah. However, it appeared that Mr. McGilded's pawn articles in that extraordinary case off the omnibus harbor secrets of which we have been hitherto unaware. Or hitherto unaware. God, I need to just learn how to pronounce it. So, Miss Lestrade, you will now give your testimony before the court about the events of 2 months ago. You will reveal the truth, a commodity sorely lacking in your original statements. This is it then, everything's going to come out. Like Von Zeke said, this could bring the whole courtroom down about my ears, but as a lawyer, I'm prepared to take that risk. Truth is that Brickmaker Cove was in the cabin of the omnibus the whole time. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw that disc on the floor. All of a sudden, I heard a scream from over me head, and that pair on the roof deck went off to call the slops. That's when McGilded slipped the driver some tin to do a run to the pawn shop roundabout. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard. Good grief, this is outrageous. What you just told the court bears almost no resemblance to your testimony 2 months ago. As you say, my lord. Then there's every chance I may have adjudicated an error in McGilded's trial. It sounds very much to me as if the man deliberately deceived the court in an effort to cover up the most wicked of schemes. Without doubt, your lordship is correct. A great injustice was done in this courtroom 2 months ago. The actions of the accused in that trial of this witness and of my learned friend are entirely inexcusable. I don't believe the whole trial was a farce. It was all lies. The McGilded fellow was robbed to the core just like that pickpocket. Don't forget that lawyer from the East. They were all in on it together. You're wrong, the lot of ya. My Naruoto, the lawyer there, he didn't know nothing about it. Humbug. I don't think so. Are we really expected to believe that? He really stitched everyone up, didn't he? What an operation to get the man off scot-free. Unforgivable. The lies have to stop. Yes, the defense made a terrible error of judgment. I intend to take full responsibility and suffer whatever consequences are deemed appropriate. However, it's imperative that the court allow the witness to elaborate on her testimony, because the true significance of McGilded's pawn articles must be brought to light. Very well, Miller and student friend. Given the depths of calamity you have just plunged yourself into, this may well be worth hearing. Words fail me. The situation is utterly deplorable. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, my lord. I will decide upon your fate following the conclusion of this trial. Of course, my lord. Blimey, Mr. Naruhodo. Now, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination. Yeah, but she's telling the truth about something, which is... we didn't know anything about it. We were just doing what we thought was best. Okay. And you were hiding in the cabin at the time as well, weren't you, Miss Lestrade? If I remember rightly, in the storage compartment underneath one of the seats. Yeah, that's right. It's pitch black under there, so you can't see nothing at all. Now, in your testimony 2 months ago, I feel certain that you claimed Mr. McGilded was the sole passenger, did you not? False testimony, my lord. That's what he told me I had to say. What the hell? But it's important that you tell us the truth now. Were Mr. McGilded and the victim acquaintances? I don't know, but I did hear him talking a lot. What were they talking about? Well, I couldn't hear too well, but if I had to say, I think it was about money or something. They kept talking about buying and not buying. Perhaps business dealings of some kind. Well, anyway, they got louder and louder. It started to sound like a proper fight. I was pretty scared by then. I hardly dared to breathe, and then all of a sudden, I heard a noise like someone keeling over on the floor. It was bloomin' loud and all. And I believe you let out an involuntary scream? Yeah, that's what gave me away. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw that disc on the floor.
Hold it! Hold it!
Was the disc you saw this disc? Yeah, I reckon it probably was. It was right next to the cove lying on the floor. Could this disc half belong to the victim, perhaps? I don't know, but McGilded picked it up pretty smartish, and then he stabbed the cove with the knife in his belly up on the seat. What did he say to you at that time? He told me not to say a word about what I'd seen or heard to no one, about the disc and all. I was dead scared. The way he was looking at me, I thought, if I didn't go along with it, I'd get stuck with that knife too. Then he started asking me a load of questions, like what me name was and where I lived and that. He asked me about being a diver too. But after a while, what happened in the carriage was noticed. Yeah, that's right. First it was a kind of rapping noise. All of a sudden I heard a scream from over me head, and that pair on the roof deck went off to call the slops. There were 2 gentlemen occupying the seats on the roof deck, I believe. That's right. They must have looked down through the skylight and noticed the cove with the knife in his guts. When they screamed, the driver pulled up the horses and McGilded got out of sight. Out of sight where? Back under the seat where I started off. Once the carriage came to an halt, the 2 coves from the roof ran off to fetch the slops. If they immediately left to fetch the police, it would appear they were entirely unrelated to the incident. So that left McGilded, the driver, and you still at the scene. Yeah, only the driver didn't know I was there because I was under the seat. I heard the cabin door open and a voice from outside. The driver, yes, he also testified in the trial, I believe. A fellow who went by the name of Beppo, if memory serves. What did McGilded and the driver say to each other? I don't know what happened, and stuff like that, mainly. That's when McGilded slipped the driver some tin to do a run to the pawn shop. That pawn shop obviously being Windibanks on Baker Street. Just a moment, Counsel. Do you mean to tell me that the driver gave false testimony in that trial as well? Perhaps the excursion to the pawnbrokery slipped his mind while he was in the stand. Indeed, Lord Von Zieks. McGildet took off his coat and gave it to the driver. He folded it up all careful-like before handing it over. When I saw him do that, I remember thinking, that coat and what's in it has got to be worth a few bob. Yes, Gina was sure the disc must be worth more than Mr. Windibank was suggesting, wasn't she? I remember her quibbling with him over the price that afternoon at the pawnbrokery. The driver looked pretty happy when McGildet flashed some brass in his face. He went running off at a lick. Then the bog trotter called to me and told me to come out from the drag's cabin. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard. Threaten you how, exactly? He told me I'd only be able to scarp her if I did exactly what he said, which included giving false testimony in court 2 months ago.
We were still talking over there.
I know. It's very, weird. And there's one other thing he said. Whoops. Which was... He told me I'd have to hang on to the ticket from the pawn shop and make sure not to lose it. The ticket? Well, I never. Said that if he didn't show up to get the ticket off me before 2 months passed, I had to go to the pawn shop and pay the money to keep it in lug, to stop it being forfeited. He left me with some brass to pay for it. But really, why on earth would Mr. McGildet have done such a thing? Depositing his overcoat with the pawnbroker before the arrival of the police, it makes no sense at all.
There was blood on it.
Yeah, there would seem to be only one logical explanation, my lord. When McGildet had the driver deposit at Windibanks was something he didn't want the police to see. Something very important that he needed to hide at all costs. Anyway, after that, he let me go, so I legged it before the coppers showed up. Well done, Gina. It couldn't have been easy to tell the truth like that. Jeannie's really put her faith in you, Bruno. Yes, and to thank her, she'll have to face a charge of perjury once this trial's over. So I need to use the time we have now to get as much information out of her as possible. It's time to really go for it. Press her on every statement. Suppose I should. Oh, and another thing. What's that? Yeah. Take a look at those two. Isn't it strange they've been whispering to each other the entire time? Yes, that is strange. It looks like they're having a secret discussion about something. I'm not sure I'm completely comfortable with that. I wonder if there's anything I can do about it. Well, we have to press them on everything.
Didn't we?
We did, but maybe there's something we found out later that we have to go earlier on. So let's press on the first couple things again. You're hiding in the cabin as well. That's right, pitch black under there. Now in your testimony. Yes. I don't know, but I did hear him talking a lot. What were they saying? Saw the disc. So if we had noticed them whispering, that would have came, but man, I heard you gasp when when we saw that, but I wasn't expecting that. What the heck's going on with Gregson?
I don't know.
This is kind of sudden.
He's not believing, he's saying, oh, not remembering.
Yeah, I don't get what's going on.
Like, the guy had a gun, how do you not remember him waving a gun?
Yeah,
But then again, what is he out doing about? Didn't they take him down for questioning, so he never got arrested for what he did either?
Yeah, which is weird. So, let me see. Let's see. Okay. It doesn't look like we're getting any new information from...
I wonder if we could present something to her. With the ticket?
I don't know. Because it doesn't seem like she's not saying anything that she didn't tell us before.
Right.
So it doesn't seem like she's lying, that we have to contradict her. Gilded, the driver, and you. Usually there's an exclamation point if I want to pursue. I wonder if I'm allowed to pursue, even in between?
You can try.
Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
Is there something you'd like to share with the court, Inspector Gregson and Mr. Graydon? Inspector, Mr. Graydon. Blimey, you're trying to give me a heart attack? You've been whispering to each other for quite some time now. Tell us, what is the discussion about? Discussion with this fella? Pull the other one, Sunshine. You think I've got anything to talk about with a shady gent like this? And I have nothing to say to this uncouth detective after he deprived me of that disc that was rightfully mine. They've clearly been talking the entire time and cross-examining Gina. It's as if they've been negotiating. And he...
Isn't stopping it.
Yeah, isn't stopping it. Told him to stay on the stand, but also seems to know something dealing with Gregson. Thank you, Ms. Lestrade. Thank you, Counsel. I've heard enough. Okay, so yeah, you can. It just kind of... It kind of wants you to figure that out. Like, there's clearly something wrong, so... It would appear on the night 2 months ago, negotiation was taking place on the omnibus. Negotiation concerning that disc. However, matters did not run smoothly. When the parties involved began to quarrel over price, McGilded took what he wanted by force, at the expense of the other man's life. Which proves my point that this is clearly extremely valuable in some way, although I don't understand why as yet. And 2 days ago, precisely 2 months after the omnibus incident, McGilded's coat and its contents were due to be forfeited. I didn't know what I should do with the ticket. I mean, the Cove died right after his trial, I knew that. So you decided you would try to reclaim the articles as your own. Well, why not, eh? They were only going to be forfeited, why shouldn't I have got them? Anyway, you can't blame me for thinking about it. Thinking ain't no crime. Miss Lestrade, it would appear Mr. McGilded was prepared to kill in order to take possession of this disc. Do you know why that would be? Eh? I ain't got a clue. But I reckon it must be worth a fair bit of brass. He was probably going to sell it. And you can't blame me for thinking that. Thinking ain't no crime. My lord. The evidence your lordship requested has been located and is ready for the court's inspection, sir. The mysterious little box deposited by McGilded 2 months ago. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a key piece in this far-reaching puzzle. I hope so. If it's something like...
I guess we should stop here for you because you have to go to bed.
Yeah. I want to keep going, you know? I'm really interested.
This is a long piece.
It is. It's done differently because it's like half of it is pure narrative and investigating, and the second half is like pure trial. There's no, we're going to the trial again the next day. Which I didn't mind doing that in the old games, but it is different. So, I hope you have, since we're going to be out of town Saturday, I hope you have some time between now and Friday that we can do this.
Okay.
So, alright, well then we are done. And next time we are wrapping up the case. And I cannot wait to figure out what the heck's going on with Gregson and Graydon and the brothers and McGilded's motive and what's on the disc, and
A lot going on.
there's a lot going on here. Alrighty.